This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. All right, so it's an appetizer of a joint practice week because usually you get like 2-3 days of joint practice. The Browns are only getting 1 day of joint practice, but it's the Buffalo Bills, a true contender in the NFL, a measuring stick for the Browns. And long story short, the Browns held up pretty well in this joint practice. Now, I don't know what that means for the future or what this means directly for the season, but it's a good step, right? That they did not embarrass themselves or looked so out of place versus the Buffalo Bills. The defense held up despite the fact that their defensive line is cooked right now. They had all kind of injuries. There was an injury to Alex Wright. We'll talk about that later in this video. It basically got to the point to where Mike Hall was playing edge. So that just tells you that it's not in a great place health-wise. We've been talking about this all camp. The offense held up fine too, right? The Browns playmakers made some plays. Casey Concepcion made some plays. The rookies that we've been talking about looking good against our guys, look good against the Buffalo Bills. And that's not really a surprise because we expect the Browns defense to be better than Buffalo's this year, despite the fact that Buffalo's a better team, right? But the Browns defense, usually puts up a pretty tough challenge for this offense. So what we saw from these rookies on offense, we knew was legit. And now we get even more confirmation of that as we see them in the preseason and joint practice. But we're going to break this down. First, we're going to start from a press conference quote from Grant Delpit and Ronnie Hickman. They were talking about what's happened at practice and what they're trying to avoid. And we talked about this yesterday. Yeah, you want physicality, but also you're getting to the points where you got to protect yourselves and your teammates. But also, you can't have fighting going down in the joint practice because then you're just wasting really quality time, especially in the Browns situation where they're only getting one joint practice in.
Good sparring in. Some good, maybe a few jabs, a few hooks. No, I just playing. Just good competition. Of course, we've been going against the same people for a long time now, so it's good to get some, friendly competition and work on what we need to work on and see where we at.
All head coaches, but him for sure. His message was, we're not going to accept any fighting in this environment. We're out here to get this work, to get better. And to compete against the Bills. Of course, like during joint practices, tensions run high, and as you see, there's fights all the time. But I think, it really lies on us to keep our composure and let our physicality show between the play and not, start some scuffle or something like that. Yeah, I definitely can say for me, I wouldn't want a fight to break out and ruin practice. Like these are valuable opportunities for not just me, but for our young players, for everyone on our roster to get to go against another defense and show what we've been working on. So, fighting is definitely something we don't want and we won't accept.
All right. So that was Zion Johnson pretty much talking about what we talked about going into joint practices yesterday. Yeah, physicality's cool, but now you can't have a fight break out. You can't have somebody hit Josh Allen in joint practice, right? If you're Todd Monken especially, and you plan on being here a while, you plan on being a head coach for a while, right? You need to be able to build up strong relationships so these coaches trust you. So maybe next time you get more than a day of joint practice. Maybe you get 3 days of joint practice, right? These are the things that are really important, especially for Todd, especially for this team, is that they don't build up a reputation where nobody wants to practice with them, right? Where nobody feels like they can get good work in. And it seems like they did get some good work in. Here's the injury report before practice. Keep in mind, Alex Wright got hurt during practice. I keep flipping to the wrong one. Bills joint practice in Berea. Browns defensive lineman Sam Kamara is back after missing multiple weeks. Quincy Judkins did not practice. Joe Royer, Cedric Tillman, Michael Burton, Carson Schlesinger, Piker Beresford. Tyreek Sapp, who was playing defensive tackle in an emergency capacity, is out. Daquan Wright, Kalia Davis, and Malik Collins. Is one of those guys the guy who went in the transfer portal? Yeah, the Browns have a guy who went in the transfer portal. I think it is Daquan. He entered the transfer portal today. He basically went back to college. If you're wondering how that happened, the NCAA changed the eligibility rules. So instead of the way that the clock used to work where it can stop and start, and then you had like the COVID exceptions and all of that, they changed it so that now it's just you get 5 years from the year you stepped on campus. So there are guys who in the old eligibility rules ran out of eligibility, but with the new eligibility rules now have an extra year of eligibility, who did not get drafted, who are saying to themselves, I could probably make more money playing college football this season than in the NFL. So they're going back. So it's not just Cleveland that this is happening to. A lot of teams are losing players to the transfer portal in the NFL. But this will probably be the only season that we see this. I know that this is like probably going to cause another round of transfer portal panic amongst football conversations, but this is something that I think is only going to happen this year because of the change in eligibility rules. It's also why people think that next year's draft is going to be really deep, because it's going to be a wide pool of players because of the eligibility rule change. So that's why that's happening, if you were wondering why that happened. But the injury update, Browns injuries during camp, it hasn't been great. It's really been interesting because like the top end of the roster has been fine. So I don't think it's become a huge conversation how many injuries that the Browns have, because it's not the top end guys that are missing a ton of time. Like, yeah, Quincy Judkins will pop on the list one day, be off the next. Carson Schwessinger's been on the list for a while, but they're not worried about that as far as week one is concerned. Denzel Ward will pop on the list for a day, be back. So it's not the top end guy, so you're not too worried about it, but everything under that top end, all the depth has been eaten up by injury so far. And you hope by the time you start the season that these guys are back out here and healthy. We're going to get into the action at joint practice, but first I got to thank my sponsor, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 sports pick app. The app is really easy to use for player picks. Just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. That's it. Rather just pick teams, PrizePicks has that now too. Just pick the winner, spread, or total in any game or fight. PrizePicks is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. Plus, you can even follow me on the app at Quen_C. Tell my picks, one click, and follow your friends too. Best of all, play your first $5 and get $150 in lineups if you win. Just use the promo code HMA when you sign up. That's right. PrizePicks just switched up their offer, so there's no better time to join. Lock in and win with that first lineup. That's code HMA at sign up to get $150 in bonus lineups if you win with your first $5 or up lineup. All right, so let's start with the Browns' order of operations today. It looked like Deshaun mainly took the reps with the ones, and then Shador split ones and twos. We'll talk about what that means in just a second here, but Daniel Fuise says, Browns and Bills breaking out into 11-on-11s. On defense, Cleveland has a 3-safety look with Delpit, Hickman, and McNeil Warren. Keep in mind, it's something that the Browns have showed a lot. It's probably going to be the base look for the Cleveland Browns. On offense, Deshaun Watson is getting the first snaps at QB. He is expected to split with Sanders today. We got more information about the split. We'll talk about that when that pops up here. We had a nice throw here from Deshaun Watson to Casey Concepcion, a deep ball connection here. I know people have been wanting to see this from Deshaun Watson, right? Him throwing deep. There's questions about if he's capable. It looks like a pretty good throw here, right? Up the middle, through the seam, really tight coverage, right in the pocket there, and a great job going up and getting it by Casey Concepcion, who, remember, people had a lot of concerns about whether he dropped the ball too much. Seems like that hasn't been a big issue for him at all. He's had a really great couple of weeks of practice, a great start to the preseason. Casey Concepcion's probably going to be used like Zay Flowers, and Zay Flowers was used in a #1 receiver capacity at Baltimore. I expect that to be the same. I expect Casey to get the ball a lot during the season and really be a huge part of what the Cleveland Browns are trying to do this year. Remember, quarterback play, it's not going to be anticipated to be high level, right? We don't think that we have all pro level quarterback play in this room. So what you're going to build your offense around is getting the ball in the hands of the people you do think can be all pro level caliber players, right? So it's Casey Concepcion, it's Harold Fannin, it's Jerry Jeudy, that's Denzel Boston. So if you're trying to get the ball to your best playmakers, the best playmaker to get the ball to is going to be somebody like Casey Concepcion, who can make it happen without having to get the ball downfield. But we're also seeing when he does have to get the ball downfield, he can take care of that. Remember, he's significantly bigger than Zay Flowers was in Baltimore, so it could be even a better version of that is what I think the hope is in Cleveland with KC. Daniel Afuise says this, per the QB tracker, this is a breakdown of the quarterback reps in the first 11-11 on season. So Deshaun Watson with all the ones, Shedeur Sanders 4 with the ones, 2 with the twos, Dylan Gabriel 3, and then Taylor Green 2 sets. So it looks like to me, in that rotation pretty much held throughout the entire joint practice, what the Browns are doing is preparing Deshaun Watson to be the starter and preparing Shedeur Sanders to be the backup. They have not announced an end to this quarterback competition. I imagine after the second preseason game, they're going to announce an end to the quarterback competition and then give Watson all the stuff with the ones going into, with Sanders getting a little bit with the twos in that last week of practice. But it looks like they've made their decision up. And quite frankly, this is what, we talked about this. This is what Todd wanted probably from the beginning. It's not because he doesn't like Shedeur or he has something against Shedeur. It's simply because Deshaun Watson is a veteran quarterback. And if you're a head coach in Todd Monken's situation and you're trying to bring together an offense with all of these moving parts, all of these new players, all of these young players, you're going to want a veteran at the quarterback position. The Browns only employ one veteran quarterback in that room, right? Dylan Gabriel is not a veteran quarterback. Taylor Green is not a veteran quarterback. Shedeur Sanders is not a veteran quarterback. But Deshaun Watson is technically a veteran quarterback, right? His years in the league are a little bit misleading because he's only played 17 games in like 5 years, but he's a veteran quarterback compared to the rest of these guys who've only played 1 year or two, 1 year for most of the room, no years for Taylor Green, who's an actual rookie. So if you're in Todd Monken's situation, whether you wanted Deshaun Watson to start or not, right? And look, I'm not the biggest fan of seeing Watson out there again, but if I'm looking at this from the perspective of Todd Monken and trying to step out of my own preference, you have to see why it makes sense that Deshaun Watson is going to be the starter for this team, given the circumstances and the context surrounding this team, right? If you're Todd Monken, you want to work with the veteran quarterback first. I think because that's the case, I'm not going to be too harsh on Shedeur for not winning the quarterback competition, because I do understand that Todd wanted Deshaun to win this one, and Todd wants a veteran quarterback, right? And ultimately, Shedeur's not at the point to where he could be a suitable replacement for a veteran quarterback in the eyes of a coach who's looking at process, because the process for Shedeur Sanders hasn't been great. So when you consider all of those things, it does make sense that we're at this place and that Deshaun Watson is here as the starter. The Browns didn't bring in another veteran quarterback. If they had brought in like Marcus Mariota and he was competing with Deshaun Watson, then maybe the competition would still be going right now, or maybe they would have picked one. But given that he's the only veteran quarterback in this kind of a situation, yeah, they're going to have to roll with Deshaun Watson. But this doesn't mean that Shedeur's not going to get opportunities. It doesn't even mean that Dylan Gabriel's not going to get opportunities or Taylor Green's not going to get opportunities. Those will likely come, because what we've seen from Deshaun Watson so far, it's not been that different than what we've seen before with Deshaun Watson, which is to say he's probably going to be a candidate to get benched at some point. So there's going to be another opportunity for Shedeur Sanders, and it's super important for him to, focus on that. And now he doesn't have the excuse of not working with ones if he gets in during the season, because even though they've kind of made their decision up, Shedeur is still getting work with the ones because he does have to prepare to be the backup quarterback, and he's probably going to have to play with these guys at some point during the season. So Shedeur is being prepared to play later. And that's not a bad thing. That's not the coach hating on him. That's not sabotage. That's just how this is probably going to work out with 99% of coaches in this situation. So that's where we are. It looks like Watson's the starter. We can all, prepare for it. It hasn't been announced yet, but it looks like they're close to announcing it. Here's some updates on the injury for Alex Wright. Alex Wright was carted off the field. It's an unfortunate situation. It looked pretty bad. We have video of it. It didn't look like so bad that he might miss the season, but it does look like he's going to miss significant time here. You can see he gets his ankle rolled up on here. Yeah, it's his ankle here on the rep with Dawkins. Right here, it looks like a high ankle sprain, a pretty severe one. So that's probably a high ankle sprain. We'll see what comes out. But that's what it looks like when you watch the video. Super unfortunate because the Browns already had more questions than they wanted to when it comes to defensive end, and especially edge two. And now the guy who's the edge two that you've been trying to get veterans in here to help got hurt. So you're even thinner than you were, and you've already missed on Jadeveon Clowney, which I'm not upset about. But you didn't get Zadarius Smith. So now you're really down at the bottom of the coven, and you need an extra body on top of that, maybe for the start of the season. And it's just in a situation where it's going to be a lot of pressure on Mason Graham and Jared Verse to carry on for this edge room because guys are just too hurt. There's too many injuries here. Another highlight throw from Deshaun Watson to Casey Concepcion. Just Casey making plays, you know what I mean? Getting open, making plays. Love to see it, right? Nice throw from Deshaun Watson. Good catch from Casey Concepcion. Awesome stuff that we're seeing here. This is the tweet I was talking about earlier where Mike Hall was playing defensive end. So we're just seeing where the edge depth is right now. It's not a great place. We have this highlight from earlier in camp. All right, so it's Shedeur Sanders to Malachi Corley. A nice rep here, right? Getting to his back step. And look, while the post-snap stuff hasn't been where we wanted it to be for him to be the starter week one, the encouraging thing for Shedeur is that the pocket stuff, the feet stuff has been much better. Look at the drop here. This is much better of a drop, right? Doesn't lose his landmark, actually steps up there. That's been consistent throughout practice. I haven't really seen him do too much of the run around stuff that he was doing last year. So that drop a lot cleaner. Ball comes out here, and there's a question of would this have been a sack in a real game? There's no doubt the processing needs to speed up for Shedeur, but this is a good rep here, right? Good step throw to Malachi Corley. Good job there, nice stuff. The second 11-on-11s followed with the same script. Watson getting all the work with the ones, Shedeur splitting reps with the ones and twos, and Gabriel and Green getting the rest. So a pretty familiar trend is going on with this quarterback room and how the reps are being split. It seems like it's fallen into Deshaun working with the ones, Shedeur working with the twos, and some of the ones, and then the rest of the guys just getting what they can get. Daniel Felice points out here, the Browns are basically copy and pasting what they did, what the Todd Monken did with Zay Flowers here. I mean, this is just right out. Even that last play is something that you see Zay Flowers do a lot, but right here, the motion, come back with the screen and the pulling guards on top of it with some action on the other side to draw these linebackers the opposite way. And then you can see it works pretty well here because Casey Concepcion gets loose for what looks like it might have been a touchdown in the game, depending on when 24 doesn't look like he has the angle to stop him. All right. So really nice stuff we're seeing from Casey Concepcion. And then Josh Allen ripped this ball to his tight end on a 2-minute drill here. Not a great look for the first team defense, but it's Josh Allen. He's going to rip you. There was a coverage breakdown there. That kind of stuff's going to happen. They're still working on some new stuff defensively. So wouldn't be too concerned here. Then the Browns on a 2-minute drill. Shedeur Sanders up first, led the team downfield, but was sacked and missed a fade to Denzel Boston. His time expired. So not a successful one there, but there was a run here from Dylan Sampson that was pretty successful. We'll try to get this to the top of it so we can see it all. And the Browns sideline got pretty hyped for this, so that's good here, right? A little pull action, gets into the gap, and then shoots through, and we know how explosive Dylan Sampson can be once he gets going. He's a hard guy to catch, so really excited for Dylan Sampson. I think he's going to be a big boom for this team as that second running back. I really do think he's going to have a much better year than what he had last year. Tom Withers reported on some trash talk happening. C.J. Gardner-Johnson talking all kinds of smack. He was either yelling check down king in the direction of Shedeur Sanders on the sideline. Here's the thing, right? Because like when Shedeur got called a check down king by C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and then like even when we were watching the game on Saturday, people were complaining about Deshaun Watson throwing checkdowns. I need people to understand that the Browns are not trying to consistently put the ball at risk with the kind of offense that they're going to be running. Like the job for the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns is to get the ball to the playmakers. And that means you're going to have to throw a lot of short passes because it's not about the quarterbacks right now. The quarterbacks are an afterthought on this team. I know it's all that people talk about in the media. Oh, who's going to win the quarterback competition? Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders. That's what people talk about nationally. But understand that the quarterback position is the weakest position on the offense, like legitimately. And I'm not trying to be rude or mean. I'm just trying to be honest about the reality of this football team and what that means they're going to look like this year when they go out there and play offense, right? If you look at it, starter for starter, quarterback's probably going to be our worst starting position throughout the year, right? Our starters on the offensive line are all better at their position than all of our quarterbacks have established themselves to be over the last couple of years. Our starters at wide receiver are all better at their position than what we anticipate our quarterbacks to be. Our tight end, Harold Fannin, is better at his position than the quarterbacks are. The quarterback is the weak link to this offense. So what you're going to design when that's the case is to have an offense where you ask the quarterback to do is you want the quarterback to be doing the least difficult thing possible. And what's the least difficult thing possible? Short throws. So, yeah, we're going to be throwing the ball short sometimes. We're going to be wanting to get the ball to Casey Concepcion. We're going to want to get the ball to Denzel Boston. And sometimes we're not going to ask him to run that long to get it. That's fine. We don't have the quarterback play to be doing that. That's the game plan, is the check down stuff. But the point of this isn't to like denigrate the Browns quarterback. The only reason C.J. Gardner-Johnson is saying this, right, and getting frustrated and talking this smack is because it's working, right? If the check downs were not working, he would just call them trash, right? But when you go, check down king, it's because they're having success. When people were talking about Deshaun in the first preseason game, he's just checking the ball now. It's because the drive was successful. Okay, and they were upset that the drive was successful. So they go, but it's only checkdowns. That's the game plan for the Browns quarterbacks, no matter who's playing, Shedeur or Deshaun. The goal isn't to shine at the quarterback position. The goal is to get the ball to the other players that we play to be much better than our quarterbacks this year. It's not hating. That's just the reality, right? So people can yell check down king, but as long as they're yelling check down king, that means they're frustrated. That means the game plan is working. That means we have nothing to really complain about. So that's good. If the Browns look like garbage today, C.J. Gardner-Johnson would have had better things to say than check down king. So take that as a victory, quite frankly, right? Because that means it's working. Let's hear from Todd Monken after practice.
Right? Had a lot of pride in the way they performed. And I thought our guys, I can only speak to one side. Obviously, the field I was on, but it was awesome. And commend the Bills and our guys for, like I said, taking it to the line and not going over the line.
The Browns held their own in joint practice today. And that is a good thing. That is a positive step in the right direction. But it is just a step, right? We shouldn't go too far with it, but we shouldn't dismiss it either, right? I've seen the Browns have good joint practices versus other teams that were much better than them at the time. It didn't really mean that they won a bunch of games that year, but from what we're really tracking this year for success, the performance of the young players, what we're seeing at this joint practice is success from the young players that we really want to be successful this year. The offensive line holding up well. That's a really nice thing to see. So that stuff right there, that does matter. I don't know what it means for win-loss record. I'm not going to get carried away with it, right? I'm not going to tell you, go bet on the Browns to win the Super Bowl, right? That's nuts. But what we are seeing is that, hey, the young talent that we've been adding, that plan of adding talent and getting better around the quarterback position, that plan is working, right? The reason they're frustrated about checkdowns is because it's working. The reason they're frustrated about Casey Concepcion is because he's killing them, right? So we're making positive steps in the right direction, and hopefully we can continue to make those steps during the course of the year. Todd Monken also announced that the older players will not play on Saturday. So he does not anticipate our older players playing on Saturday, but does anticipate that the young guys will get reps in the preseason against the Bills. What I interpret this to mean is that the Browns will basically play everybody that they played on both sides of the ball after the first drives of the preseason game last week. So last week, like Jared Verse played one drive on the defensive side, Mason Graham played one drive, and then they were out for the rest of the game. Quincy Williams, Grant Delpit, and then they were out for the rest of the game. I imagine that'd be the case. Maybe some of the young guys who have been really good in camp, we don't see them that much, like Casey Concepcion. I don't know how much of him we're going to see in this preseason game. We're not going to see Quinshawn in this preseason game more than likely. So less guys than what played after the first quarter, but like about the same. Like Denzel Boston will be out there. I don't know if Harold Fannin is going to be out there a ton. But like Spencer Fano is going to be out there, right? Like I think it's going to be that group of guys playing in this preseason game. I am interested if Deshaun Watson actually plays in this game. Like, that's something to note because he wasn't 100% that Deshaun Watson was going to play. And I thought that was interesting when he said that. So keep your eyes on that one. But that's it about joint practice. That's what happened. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.